Skipper celebrates. Every show is a celebration. Richard Skipper celebrates the best in entertainment. Each show, Richard delivers the artists you love, showcasing what makes them unique. Never gossipy. The antidote to a sometimes hectic world. Now, here's your host, Richard Skipper.
Happy Sunday night, everyone, and welcome to the latest edition of Richard Skipper Celebrates. My hope is that everyone who is seeing this show has had a wonderful Sunday afternoon and gearing up for an even better week. For those of you who are here for the first time, my show is all about celebrating. It's about celebrating life, celebrating art, celebrating artists. And what makes a great artist? How do they get from point A to point B and beyond? If this is the first time that you're here, welcome. My hope is that by the end of this show that you will have subscribed to our channel and you'll see some of the other artists that we've either celebrated or that we will celebrate in the future. You will hit the like button and that you will leave a comment right here on Richard Skipper Celebrates. I get to meet artists from all walks of life thanks to friends who suggest them, thanks to books that I read, thanks to things that I hear on the news, not the nude, thanks to what I hear on the news, and also thanks to incredible publicists. And one of those publicists is Ralph Lampkin. And he reached out to me about this phenomenal Canadian board. They're opening the borders tonight, everyone. And he recommended this incredible singer by the name of Serafin. And I would like to share with you this incredible clip from Serafin's latest CD. It's heartfelt. It's from the heart, and we will meet Serafin on the other side. Here he is. Enjoy.
I say this is empty. He finds it too full. He's catch and release and catch again while I'm all push and pull. We're magnets with the same two sides. We're gravity caught in a tide. And I could really use a time machine to go back home. He says I'm too critical, but I just want him to try. Just the slightest hint of what I need, and he starts to cry. Well, maybe we're different, or maybe too much the same. All I know is I want the best of him, so I'll stay in the game. And she wouldn't necessarily know what to do, but she'd see what's true. Well, I am, and he's gone. Oh, I let myself down. And I really need you to tell me what to do. I want my mom. How to find peace, how to make peace, how to keep peace. Tell me how to find you, how to find him, how to find me. Life is cold without you. Such a fool. In the middle of the night I wake up wailing. I use words, I use tears, but no one seems to hear. I really need you to tell me what to do. Oh, if you could only just tell me what to do. I really need you to tell me what to do.
Wow. 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 I am so, oh my God. I have to tell you, I have watched this so many times and I have cried over and over and over again. This is so moving. It is so beautiful. I have become such a fan of yours. So yes, no, I want to thank Ralph for suggesting this. And I've been so looking forward to this tonight because there is so much depth in your voice. And I have been listening to other tracks of yours. And when are you going to perform in New York? We've got to get you to New York.
Oh, God, I hope so.
Yes.
I guess the borders open, but apparently they're opening tonight. So
the borders are opening tonight, so who knows? I always begin my shows by asking our guests what they're celebrating right now, but I want to start with your mom. Let's celebrate your mom for a moment. This, first of all, is such a heartfelt, incredible video. Obviously, a lot of heart has gone into this. Your mom recently passed away not long ago. Am I correct?
It was during the first week of COVID, really, actually. The first week when it was sort of still over there, right? We were like, something is going on over there. And we were wondering if it was going to come over here. And she died right before that. So it was, I'm glad. She wasn't my biological mom. I was homeless when I was 17. Wow. And this lady took me in. And not really knowing me very well, we'd met at a meditation class, and I was living in my car, an old car that my grandfather had given me, and she took me in and cared for me and loved me and became my mom.
Well, did you know who your biological parents were or are?
I do. Things weren't great at home. So I was asked to leave. And,
well, God bless you for grabbing hold of who you are and living your authentic self, which I love.
Well, thank you.
Yes, and that's the important lesson that we're going to celebrate tonight. But you have this phenomenal voice. How old were you, if you don't mind my going there, when you were asked to leave your home?
I was 17. I just turned 17, actually. I was 17 years and 3 weeks. Mm-hmm. So.
And did you have any prospects of where you were going to go or anything, or where did you go?
My grandfather had given me a 1981 Ford Fairmont that I called Freddie, and he had given me this car, and I could never really figure out why. It was it was an old banger, and but he could see, I think, that later on he told me he could see that I would need independence, and I think that was sort of what brought him to do that. And so no, I didn't know where I was going to go. My parents had a business, a food store. So I still had a key. I don't know if they knew I had a key or not, but I did. So I would let myself in and wash my hair and bathe and sleep in my car. And I got a job, and then I got a second job. And after that, and I met Dorothy, who became my mom, and who loved me and hugged me and did things that I didn't grow up with, and opened my heart and saved my life, literally saved my life. I was on my way I had been planning to sort of make an exit from the planet, and she literally saved my life. So
it's very interesting. I mean, I left home when I was 18 years old. I made that choice as well. I was watching an incredible documentary last night on Rita Moreno. She almost checked out as well. She
really, I didn't know that.
Yes, great documentary. Watch it. due to a horrendous relationship that she was going through with Marlon Brando. That's all. Spoiler. That's all I'm going to tell you. But thank God, and her better days came after this failed attempt. Thank God. Yeah. You had Freddie. You found Dorothy. When did you find your voice? And I want to say one of your voices, because you have a 5-octave range.
Yeah.
I mean, growing up as a kid, was there music in your household?
No. In fact, if I sang, it was not, if I just sort of sang around the house, it was not terribly encouraged. Mm-hmm. My mother, though, loved, my biological mother, loved the Bee Gees. And this one concession to sort of me being, well, at that time gay, and now I'm sort of non-binary trans. And her one concession was she would sing the Barry Gibb part of Barbra Streisand's Guilty album. Mm-hmm. And I would do Barbra Streisand's part. So I knew my voice wasn't changing. My voice coach at the time didn't use that. She said, you're going to lose that part of your voice. We're going to focus on your lower voice. And then it just didn't go away. So I started training it and classically. And classical music is so great because it's unforgiving. It tells you that you have to have smooth passage, movement between the sort of areas of your voice, the chest voice, the head voice, that the passagios, those areas where you change from one voice to another, where it becomes more full or whatever, that it has to be completely smooth. So it's a wonderful way to train, especially if you have kind of an unusual voice, because it's so demanding and so meticulous.
Well, you said something that was very interesting. You said you're a vocal coach. So you were singing. So obviously somewhere, someone knew that you had this gift. So
yes, Sister June Prentice from school. She was like, you have to have voice lessons. And I did the Kiwanis, and I don't know if you have it in the States, but here we have the Kiwanis music festivals and the Kiwanis music competitions. And so she had me in those, and I was singing classical music and Lachen und Weinen, and singing in German as a 13-year-old, spitting out all these sort of saliva as I negotiated the lyric. But yeah, no, I was singing at school. It was very supported. Mm-hmm. I was very.
Well, what was your school life like? I mean, you obviously, and I don't want to dwell on this too much, but you didn't have a happy home life. Did you have a happy school life?
Well, the first part, strangely enough, when we moved from British Columbia, which is our west coast, mm-hmm. above Seattle, when we moved to Ontario, which is sort of close to Buffalo, the area that I lived in, I was really fearful of being in school. I was in grade 3, and I knew that I was different. And I went to a Catholic school. We weren't Catholic, but it was the only bus we had. And ironically, I had a really good experience in elementary school. The teachers were kind for the most part. The kids were very accepting of me for the most part. And I wasn't popular at all, but I wasn't persecuted either. And I was accepted as being part of, and if I sang, kids would cheer, and sort of applaud and stuff. Mm-hmm. Even so, I was accepted there. It wasn't until high school that it was really, really difficult. I went to the football high school, and it was that was challenging. But not.
Well, let me ask you this: when was the first time in your life that you were told that it was not okay to be who you are?
Oh, I would have been about 6. It was before we left. I was 7 when we left BC, when we left the West Coast. Mm-hmm. It was prior to then, so I probably would have been about 6 or 5 or 6. And I remember I was standing a certain way, and my dad sort of slapped my hands out of my pocket and said, "Don't do that. You look like a girl. You look like a fairy." And I thought, "Oh, a fairy, that sounds nice."
I'm with you on that. Today is National Gay Uncle Day. So to all the
Really?
out there,
Oh,
yes,
that's
yes,
lovely. Now, are you a gay uncle?
I'm a gay uncle. Yes.
Oh, wonderful.
So anyway, I'm sorry for interrupting, but
No, not at all.
yeah.
Yeah. So that was my earliest. At home, it was a big deal. It was a really big deal. At school, it's funny. Elementary school, it wasn't a very big deal. And when I look back at my report, I have a son now. I have an adopted son now.
Oh, wonderful.
10. And I was looking through my old report cards, and I thought, oh, here, I'll show off my old report cards. And they were dreadful, but, but they were hard. Oh, terrible. But in the report cards, it mentioned frequently that I was unhappy, that I seemed like an unhappy, troubled child, that I was depressed. And so...
Well, you bring up a very interesting point. I mean, were any of your teachers aware of what your home life was like?
I don't know. I do know that, and I just took it as fine at the time, but I do know that I was allowed to leave grade 7, my grade 7 class, at any time I wanted to go and talk to the principal. I think I had been having suicidal ideation at that point and probably expressed something to that effect. I don't remember clearly, because when you're that age, you sort of just talk, but I was very, very much sort of, I figured that at some point I would die, and kill my, end my life, and I just sort of took it as.
Was there anyone that you could talk to, or was there anyone that you felt that you could talk to at that point?
The principal at the school was really kind to me. I would just go in and talk to him. I don't remember what I talked to him about. Because I wasn't bullied at school. I was bullied at home, but I wasn't bullied at school. But he was lovely. I remember his first name was Frank. I can't remember his last name. But he was really lovely. And my music teacher, Sister June Prentice, she was lovely, and I think they must have known that I wasn't a happy kid, and they certainly must have known that I was different, because I was most certainly mincing my way down the hallway at a very young age. But yeah, they gave me a lot of opportunity to shine. They gave me lots of opportunity. We had these weekly things called sharing time at our school, and the whole school would gather. It was a small school. It would gather in the gymnasium, and classes or individuals would do stuff. So I would either play piano or I would sing, and it was a time that I could do something that was expressive, and I took it for granted. And I realized now that someone had made this huge effort to include me. So
would you say that it was music primarily that got you through those years?
Oh God, yes. Yeah, for sure. My big thing was listening to music with the headphones on, listening to record albums, and imagining that I was singing the lyrics. And I didn't even know where I was imagining it. But I remember, especially as a teenager, singing, there was an artist that I loved, Luba, who is a Canadian singer. And she had 2 hits in the States in the 80s. She's retired now, and I'm actually Facebook friends with her, and she's lovely. But her music there were many songs about sort of becoming strong, and becoming fierce and becoming a warrior, and those kind of songs really transported me. I think that, I think a lot of effeminate sort of boys or trans, I think that, we often sort of grab onto these particularly women, less so now. We have more male vocalists like Sam Smith, and these vocalists that are coming from a place of heartache or of some kind of diminished social position, and becoming strong. They have these big belty voices, and I don't think that's an accident. I don't think it's about camp. I think it's about strength.
It's interesting, because I've often wondered when people, like Judy Garland and Barbara Streisand and Shirley Bassey, these
Melissa Manchester, who you interviewed,
Melissa Manchester, all coming up through the ranks, Bette Midler, all coming up through the ranks and creating that. But as you're going through high school, and those quiet moments for yourself, did you have any ambitions? Did you have any dreams, desires that you were going to go into show business, that you were going to do anything? None of them were there.
Well, I didn't think it was possible. And I didn't know if I could sing well at that point, particularly in high school. I didn't know if I could sing well. I was very afraid to sing at the high school I was at. I remember singing in grade 9. They had a end of the year sort of talent thing, and I remember people laughing. And so I didn't actually know if I could sing until I was, 16, 17, somewhere around there.
Which was at the same time that you, as you said, left home. So
yeah.
Fred,
I found that I could, the first sort of time I thought, oh, I must be okay. I was in my beat up old car, and I was driving down George Street in this town that I was living in, and I was singing along with a Tina Turner song. And this guy, I was stopped at the light, and there was this guy next to me, and he had his window down. He was looking at me, and I held some big note, and he looked at me and he goes, "Right on, that was really righteous."
Wow. I love that.
And it was huge. I would love to.
Know what that person was.
Tiny moments where people say something to you, and it makes this massive impact on your life and on your identity and your perception of yourself. Yeah, I've often thought about that. But yeah.
So, where did you? You slept in your car. You would go home to, bathe and everything. But how did you start putting your life together? What were the early stages for yourself?
Well, I actually went to bathe in their store when it was closed at night. They had a big tub at the back to wash pails, and so I'd go there and I'd wash my hair and bathe in this big, huge basin thing. How did I put my life back together? I got a job. I had to drop out of school. I got a job. Then I got another job. I got a daytime job, a nighttime job. Some friends of mine had been living in a renovated chicken coop barn in the country, which was very cheap, and they were leaving, and I moved in. And it was much nicer than it sounds, but it was a renovated barn. It was a barn. It was very small, and I lived there, and I just sort of started becoming myself. And it was a really amazing, scary time to be. I made some friends. They were all much older than me at the time, and I started.
Did you find, as this was happening in your life, that your previous life was beginning to fade away almost, and that you were beginning to find yourself? You're becoming a new person. You're not really a new person, but your authentic self, that you're beginning to live as yourself. And as this is happening, are you finding that you're becoming stronger within your own body, your own self? And I'm hoping that those suicidal thoughts are fading away as well.
At that point, I was doing okay. And then I fell in love, which was not a great experience. Well, whose is, right? Your first time.
The first time, it's an experiment.
Yes, exactly.
Yes.
I had my heart broken, and I was poor. I was living on macaroni and margarine, and I thought about doing myself, and it was my last sort of period of feeling that, experiencing that. And I had, in the little barn, there was a garage underneath where I parked my car. It was just underneath the floorboards. So I had planned to start my car and go to sleep. But I had these 3 little cats, and I thought, oh God, they're going to die too if I do that, and who's going to feed them and stuff. So I didn't. And after that, I just thought, there's got to be a way to do this. There has to be a way to do this, to live. And I also saw Leslie Jordan on television. Mm. And I was a journalist for about 12 years in Toronto with an Extra magazine. Mm-hmm. And I got to interview him and tell him this. He was the first gay person I'd ever seen on television. And when I saw him, I was like, oh, I know what that is. I know what that is, you know, and he's on TV and people are laughing and, you know,
with him,
exactly. And I got to tell him that when I interviewed him. It was probably 8 or 9 years ago now, maybe 10 years ago now. And of course, he's had a big resurgence on Instagram, right, with his updates. Yeah, I didn't tell him that he was the first sort of that I looked at him and recognized this other, and that was when I started to think there has to be a way to do this. There must be a way to do this, and I tried to become more masculine for a while, and that didn't really work. And you know, I kind of experimented, I think, with my personality and tried to figure out. I don't know. It was a weird. It's all of us do that, right? We sort of craft our personality in a way. We sort of figure out how we feel about things, and I think a lot of us in the LGBTQ community have a delayed opportunity to do that. To really look at.
I think most people in life try to become what we think other people want us to be.
Yeah.
And you know, which is a huge, huge, huge shame. That
was never going to happen with me.
No,
I mean, I tried, and I remember people would come into our store and they'd mistake me for a girl. I wasn't allowed to go to the front of the store. I had to stay in the back because people would come in and mistake me for my parents' daughter, and they were horrified. You know, this was just the worst thing ever. And I sang at a competition, and they introduced me and referred me to she. And the funny thing is, at the time, I was like, "Oh God, I felt seen." And I sang and I came in second, and my mother was there, and she was again horrified. I mean, she was doing the best she could, I guess, with growing up in the prairies, but she was horrified. She said, "You mustn't sing again in public until your voice changes properly." And at that point I was 15, and I thought, that ain't gonna happen. So
you and I are going to have a drink one day on a Zoom call. We're going to talk. I mean, you know, it's amazing that their own shame that they're putting on you for whatever reason it is that she is feeling with this. But I really want to get to how the singing began for you. With all of this that's going on, you know, when, where, and how did you find your voice?
I started singing when I finally had my own place, my little barn. I was singing all the time, and my neighbors would hear me sometimes, and they'd say things. They'd say, "Oh, you got a nice voice," and blah blah blah. You got a strong voice. And I auditioned. I was terrified, and I auditioned for something, a little play, and I got the role, and I sang in it. I was playing Titania, Queen of the Fairies, in a Shakespeare production, and they allowed me to sing the one of the speeches when she falls in love with Bottom. And I got a great review, and our little city newspaper wrote this paragraph about me, and I thought, I could do this. I could really do this. And I went to Toronto, and they had a little recording booth at the mall. You could sing along with the karaoke song, and they'd record it. And I did that, and I listened to it, and I thought, I could do this. And it took a long time because I was afraid, and I was, you know, didn't know how to start. And I by nature, more of a shy person, certainly back then, and I didn't want to intrude on anybody. But you know, I moved to Toronto, which is our big city, and I fell in with a crowd that was artistic. And there's a performance artist named David Bateman here in Canada who is just brilliant. He's a poet and a performance artist and writer and playwright, and he was so authentic. You know, he was doing sort of semi-drag with his art, and he was writing plays, one-person plays about his experiences growing up. And I looked at him and I thought, I could do that. I could be that. I could be not him, but I could be myself. And it just sort of fell in from there. And there's been delays, and I took 10 years off when I adopted my son, and just sort of sang. I have an agent in Quebec City here, so I would sing at small clubs and things, and then I recorded the album, and it's sort of, you know, picked up again. But it's been a real ebb and flow
Well, what I hear in your story is I hear that a lot of people were validating you, but you weren't really listening to them. You weren't listening to them until you got that review in the paper.
Oh,
I mean,
yeah.
going all the way back to school, and teachers are telling you that you've got a voice. The voice has always been there. And sometimes everyone around you is telling you this, and it just takes that seeing it in print to say, yes, it's there.
Oh, and until this, you know, I've had 3 albums before this is my 4th album. And until this, at Christmas time, we split, my publicist in the States split my album that we released in Canada into 2, a jazz album and then an album, the original material that I wrote, like Mom, which was the video you played. So the jazz album is now called Because You're Mine, which is a line from I Put a Spell on You. And the other one's Unravel, which is the original material, but it also has a cover of this song that we sort of threw off at the last minute in the studio, which I've been doing in my set for a long time. And it's the cover of this pop song I grew up with in the 80s called Take On Me. And do you remember that? The music video was like pencil drawings, and it was just, you know, really cool. But I'd always thought it was such a sad song, you know, listening to it. And so I started doing this slow version. The funny thing is I've been doing the slow version for about 4 years, and then they released a slow version of it. The band themselves released a slow version, which is just much better than mine. It's gorgeous. But I recorded it, and then I did a video for it, just a little black and white video. And it was at Christmas time that I launched it. And now it's at 60,000 views or something on YouTube, which isn't a lot for most artists, but for me it's huge as a jazz artist. It far outdistanced anything I've ever done. And it was hugely validating. For the first time I actually relaxed and thought, okay, this is okay, you know, because I've been fired because of my looks or because of my mannerisms or being sort of gender non-binary, trans sort of stuff.
Well, let's go there for a moment.
Do
you think that that's changing?
Yes,
do you think that we're finally the world is getting on board and realizing? You know, I'll tell you, years ago, I was performing in Provincetown. This is 100 years ago. And I was booked during Fantasy Fest. And there were all these people from all different walks of life, different genders and everything. And I remember for the first time in my life, I realized life is not black and white. It's full of all the colors of the rainbow. And I mean, there were cross-dressers, many straight men who loved to dress as women. There were transsexuals, there were transvestites, there were everything across the board. And it was so beautiful and so wonderful to see the spectrum of the rainbow. And I just think it's so wonderful that the world finally is getting on board with the fact that's why we have a rainbow flag, let's face it. That they're all different shapes and colors and everything. What is the biggest obstacle that you find that you're still facing, you know, as an artist in today's world with living your authentic self?
I think the obstacles are a lot less, but I do think the fact that I'm hard to pin down because of my voice and because of the way I look, and I no longer keep my hair short, I grow it long. I think that there's still in jazz, particularly in Canada, jazz, you know, there's only 4 people in Canada that actually listen to jazz. And we have a poppy.
And 2 of them are in Toronto.
Yeah, exactly. One of them.
And I know who they are.
We have 30 million people in Canada, and you guys have 300 million people in the States. So our jazz community is really limited. And it's still largely controlled by a bunch of older, straight, white guys who want to listen to Monk and the Thelonious Monk, which is great. You know, Miles Davis, and singers aren't really. I think there's still that, but they're dying out. We call them the jazz police. I don't know if you have the jazz police in the States, but here we call them the jazz police. And it's like, if you're a girl, you wear a short dress and you sing certain songs and you don't deviate from that. And if you're a guy, you have short hair and you wear a suit and you do crooner songs, and that's that. And so there's still that prevailing thing. I've had far more airplay in the States than I have in Canada. That's also a function of our population numbers being much, much less dense. But I've had a lot of support with our national broadcaster, which is CBC Radio and Television. But the actual stations, I have way more support in the States than I do in Canada, which is weird.
Well, let me ask you this. How hands-on are you as an artist in terms of getting your music out there? I know that you have an agent, you have a publicist. Ralph is very hands-on when it comes to his clients. He's one of the best.
Yeah.
And I'm not saying that because he's watching. But he truly is one of the best in terms of being hands-on with his clients. But how hands-on are you in terms of getting your music out there?
I'm a terrible promoter for myself, so I always hire somebody. And actually, I hired Greg Pasenko as the publicist, and he works with Ralph. I hadn't even met Ralph other than on email, and he's so nice, and he was, he's just so encouraging, and he sends these lovely, brief, beautiful emails, that are so, they make me just feel like I'm on fire. He's lovely, very supportive of art. You can tell he loves music and loves art. And Greg is also like that. These are not people that are doing it because they want to make a buck. They're doing it because they're excited about it. But other than that, I'm hands-on. I don't. My agent finds me gigs. But everything else is, I decide what I'm going to wear now, and I decide how my hair is going to be, and I, conceive my own videos and edit my own videos, and I learned how to do that with COVID because I needed to do it, and I work with the engineer in my albums, and I'm really hands-on because nobody else would do it with me earlier on, because it was like no one would duet with me earlier on because it was like, oh, that's weird. Is it going to sort of compromise things? And as things have changed now, so I had to do it myself. You have to learn to do it yourself. And as things have changed, now people are much more sort of, they don't think of it as risky anymore to be identified with someone like me. And before, I think there was a real fear that, it would be risky. So.
Well, I want to ask you, how ambitious are you now when it comes to your career in terms of what you want where do you want to see yourself in 5 years from now? In a non-COVID world, hopefully.
Wearing a medium. That's what I want. A girl.
I love that.
Geez, well, my son in 5 years will be almost about to turn 16, so I would like to think I won't be institutionalized. I'm guessing I'll be heavily medicated. But I think, it's funny because Greg asked me this, Greg Pasenko, and my agent asked me this, and they were like, what do you want? And I said, I'm middle-aged. I want to be 90, and I want to be sitting in a chair not thinking how much did I get paid for this gig, but thinking I sang in Prague. I've never sung in New York. I want to sing in New York. I want to know that I've sung for as many different people as I can because I love doing it. I had a concert last night and I sang for a predominantly Francophone audience here, French-speaking audience. And I love the idea that, because singing physically do you sing at all? Do you?
Oh, I'm a singer.
Yeah.
I'm first and foremost a singer. So
yes, I thought so, because you're from theater, right?
Yes.
Yeah. So that there's that feeling, that endorphins, you get this wonderful, I always hold my stress in my stomach. But when you're using your diaphragm and all that, you feel good. It makes your body feel good. And you share that with the people that you're singing with, and you can make them feel the emotions that you're sort of processing or that you've experienced when you're thinking of these songs or conceptualizing the songs or interpreting songs. And I want to be able to do that for as many people as I can, as many different places as I can. I've never cared about traveling, but I love singing at different places. So that's in 5 years, I would really like to be moving about, singing.
Well, you are an enigma because you sing classical music, you sing jazz music, you sing, traditional standards. You cover the gamut. Putting together a show, do you want to encompass all of those genres in one show, or do you want to do a show that would focus on one specific genre?
Ideally, I would like to do a soft cedar show, which is I did last night, which incorporates all of them, because classical music is amazing to sing. It's hard to. I sang classic, sang Mozart in Prague, and it took me 6 weeks to prepare because I've gotten so lazy. This is 10 years ago now, though. But I would love to incorporate all of those, because my first album was called 2 a.m. at the Torch Cafe. And I took all these pop songs and did them as sort of Torch jazz numbers. Mm-hmm. And I love Torch music. I grew up with Melissa Manchester. The first album I had of hers was called Get Ricky. Mm-hmm. And it had Don't Cry Out Loud on it. It had a number of songs that just made this massive impact on me as listening to this woman sing. So when I saw that she was I was like, oh. But those songs, those Torch songs in particular, they're amazing to sing. Mm-hmm. And I would like to, the songs that I do that are jazz, I sing Cry Me a River. I sing it as a Torch song. Take on Me, the cover I sing it as a Torch song. I would love to be able to do more of that, to sort of incorporate more of that. The show I did last night was predominantly jazz, but.
And did you perform in an outdoor or an indoor venue?
No, indoor, at a place called the Piggery Theater. It used to be a pig barn. Barns come up in my life many times.
Mine too. I grew up on a farm, so.
Okay, well, I lived in the chicken barn, and last night I performed in the pig barn. But it's a theater that's been a theater for like decades, and it's a soft theater. It's like you're on the stage, and there's seats rising up in front of you, and lights, and. But I love that. I love the idea of singing songs, that I've written, and songs that that people like Melissa Manchester or Streisand or Bette Midler, or my favorite Della Reese, when she was still a jazz singer.
Oh my God, Della Reese is one of my favorites.
I've stolen so many songs. I've lifted about 3 songs from her set list from the Basin Street album, the Live at Basin Street album. I've changed the arrangements. You came a long way from St. Louis and things like that, but that woman was just
absolutely
joyful music, a joyful stage presence, and heartbreaking.
And how did the gig for last night come about? How are people finding you? How do people know about the work that you're doing?
Well, you're never a preacher in your own town, so.
Sometimes you are. Well, let me tell you something. In Provincetown, you are a preacher in your own town.
Yeah.
And you should be playing Provincetown, by the way. So Ralph, Provincetown. You also, in New York, you are a preacher in your own town. So perhaps in Canada, you're not. So anyway, how did this gig come about last night?
My agent was here visiting with his mother, and they had seen something I did on this. I sang at the Quebec City Jazz Festival, and CBC covered it, which is our national broadcaster, and they interviewed me in French, and I sang, and it went out over the country. And so my music has been being played heavily on that. Well, not heavily, but frequently. And so, once people see, oh, okay, then there's something legitimate happening there. They and I think that's normal. They sort of approached me and said, we saw that you're doing really well, and would you like to do a gig? And my agent was with me, and he said, yeah, let's do it. Do it while I'm here. So we had 4 days of planning, and
wow, that's great.
I met 2 musicians. I split my time between Quebec and Toronto. So I'm in Quebec today. And so it just happened very suddenly and very, very, in a very nice sort of manner. Because everything was shut down for so long. I don't know about you, but everything was on pause. You know,
Mhm.
there's nothing happening anywhere. Musicians were not working, and so it's like you get an offer of a gig, and you're like, yeah, of course, I don't care. How much is it? Don't tell me how much it pays. I'll just be there. You know?
Don't say that out loud.
try to have a microphone.
Right now, it feels like, I mean, with all these new variables and variances coming out and everything, it's like everything. I feel like I'm standing on a cliff, not knowing what the next phase is going to be for any of us. It's hard to plan. I was planning a major 3-day event in October, and we postponed it till next year. It was just too iffy for us to, you know, plan ahead, you know, with everything. So I want to ask you, when everything did shut down last year, March 12th was the day that all the theaters shut down in New York, and of course across the country, everything shut down. What did your calendar look like? And what is the biggest impact that the past year has had on you beyond the obvious things that we've all been going through? And what are some of the things that you feel that you will carry through beyond COVID in terms of the way that you're living your life now?
First and foremost, as a parent, I became absolutely convinced that no matter what anyone told me, I was going to protect my child, because, you know, the government in the province I'm in Quebec was minimizing, to sort of minimize panic, I guess. And so I decided that I would never compromise my son's safety, even if someone told me to, even if someone told me it was okay. Because here they were saying, you know, COVID is not spread by breathing, you know, and that was the position for the first 2 or 3 months, that COVID was like a contact thing, that it wasn't spread aerosol, it wasn't spread through respiration. And I just decided that I wasn't going to, you know, I pulled him from school, and they tried to get kids to go back to school because they wanted parents to go back to work. And I just thought, no. And it changed something in me, where it was like, I'm not going to worry about authority when it comes to protecting my kid. I mean, I wasn't rude about it or anything, but I was just like, I'm not going to do that. I worked so hard and waited so long to have him, and he's been with me for most of his life. And I thought, so that changed me, the way I perceive authority, government authority, and school boards, although our school board was wonderfully supportive. The other thing that changed me was that I like the slower pace of life a lot. The tranquility of being, you know, in the middle of nowhere, which is where I am right now, and just kind of watching the world from a very distant place. I stopped watching the news more than twice a day. I would check it in the morning, I'd check it in the evening. And that stayed. I stopped watching television completely, and that stayed. Just because I wanted to be in a bubble, you know, be sort of safe, and try and protect my son from being too afraid. And then when my mom died, I was, you know, at a loss. I was homeschooling my son, which any parent will tell you is just the absolute crap show of the century. It's just horrible. And if they say it's not, then they're lying, because they're still in shock. But I'd had a really bad day with trying to homeschool him, and I felt like I was failing him. I was like, oh my God, he's going to be behind the other kids. He's going to be, you know, not be educated. It's going to be a disaster. And that's when I wrote Mom. I was like, Mom, I need you to tell me I'm doing okay. And then I thought, I don't care. I don't care if he needs to be held back a grade. I don't care if he doesn't learn algebra. I don't care. I mean, right now, I don't care. I will when it's appropriate to care, but right now, I'm not going to worry about stuff that is outside of our control. And that changed me profoundly, not worrying. Because as an LGBTQ parent, you're really under scrutiny, and from everybody. They lots of people offer advice, lots of people ask questions, and offer criticism and things like that. Constructive, I think they think.
Mm-hmm.
But but there's a lot of that as an LGBTQ parent. And I stopped caring. I just thought, I don't care. I don't care. I want my son to be alive. I don't want him to have a lingering lung ailment if he does get COVID and survives it and ends up with scar tissue on his lung. That was a big deal, not caring. I never cared about, I'd stopped a long time ago caring what people thought about me, but I stopped caring what people thought about the job I was doing as a parent. And that was a big deal. Because we want to do a good job, right? We want people to say, oh, look at that child. They must have the most wonderful parents in the whole world. My God, he's so polite. Look at that grade A. And
that's wonderful. Well,
and now I'm like, look at the child that doesn't barf in a car, and I'm happy, right? Like,
that's great. That's great. I feel the same way about my pets.
Yeah.
If my dog doesn't bite someone, that's gonna be.
What have you got? What have you got? Cats?
I have 2 cats.
Yeah.
And I have a Maltese puppy who is, we got him just before the pandemic, and and God bless him. But I'm going to ask you, this is the rounding up. These are questions that are just for fun, that are generic questions that are not specific to you, but just questions that I put together from my readings and everything. And the first question is, what one thing do you miss most about another place that you've visited?
Oh boy. Paris. I miss going on a stage and having people be like rowdy when you sing. I sang it last. There's nothing like that, to have a bunch of French men hollering their heads off and raising beer. Boy, I miss that. Because Canada's very polite. They applaud, they go woo woo, but they don't go crazy. We don't go crazy in our audiences.
Wow, that's great.
We do.
Who taught you the most about being a good person?
Boy, my aunt and Dorothy. Dorothy, actually, probably primarily. Mm-hmm. She was a good person, unselfish person.
What was the hardest secret that you've had to keep in your life? We've got to meet someday. I can't wait to meet you. What are you most underappreciated for?
Oh boy. That's a good question. I think I don't know the answer to that. Underappreciated for. I don't know. I wish I knew that one.
Okay.
You know what? I don't drink, and I don't do drugs of any kind. And but that's not really appreciated. I don't know.
Okay.
And I don't know.
Same here. What is the most sacred thing in your life? I think I know the answer.
My son.
Mm-hmm.
My
great.
son. And it's really great conditioner I just discovered.
Oh, that's great.
Right up there.
And what is the biggest lie that you've ever been told?
You're ugly.
Wonderful. Oh, wow. Wow.
Ah!
What is the grandest lie that you've ever been told?
The best lie I've ever been told. You're the best parent in the whole world. That's probably a lie.
And what was the hardest apology that you have ever delivered?
I said to my son about 6 months ago, there was a time when he was about 3, and I took away a toy that I just bought him because he was throwing something at a lady in public, and I took the toy, I just bought it, and I put it in the garbage in this coffee shop, and we left. And I said, I am really sorry. I should have found a different way of doing it. Because he remembers, he's 10, he's almost 11, he still remembers. He was probably 3 years old, and he still remembers that. And that was the worst thing I've ever done as a parent, taking this toy away. And he didn't have it for more than 15 minutes, but it was a terrible thing to do. And I apologized and said, I hope you can forgive me. I should have done better. I should have found a better way to handle that situation.
Wow.
And he's like, okay.
Well, I want to tell you, first of all, I have enjoyed tonight so much.
Oh, thank you. I have too.
I am such a fan of yours. Ralph, thank you. I hope we do this again sometime. You're welcome here anytime anything new comes out. Don't go anywhere for a moment. I want to thank everyone for being here tonight. I don't take for lightly that you could have been anywhere else for the last hour. The fact that you chose to spend it with us means the world to me. Again, if this is your first time here, please subscribe to Richard Skipper Celebrates on YouTube. Hit the like button if you did indeed like tonight's show. Leave a comment and tell your friends. That's how we build an audience. And Serafin and I will both tell you it's all about building an audience in this business. I also end every show by telling everyone to go out and do something nice for somebody else without expecting anything in return. Go to your Facebook friends list, and the 8th name that pops up, reach out with a phone call. Not an email message, not a text message, not a private inbox message, but a phone call. And let that person know what they mean to you. As a dear friend of mine, David Friedman, always says, we're all in this together, but we're not in the same boat. But if you're going to be out in a boat, make sure you bring a skipper along. Now, Serafin, I want to say to you, I thank you for the gifts that you've given to the world and the gifts that you will continue to give to the world. I thank you for spending tonight with me. I'm actually going to leave the screen, and I'm going to give you the final word. Anything that you want to say about anything that we talked about tonight that you want to build upon, anything that we didn't talk about that you wish we had, or just any message you want to put out to anyone in the world today. And don't worry about signing off. When you give the kiss goodbye, we'll sign off. Thank you, and make it a great night.
Thank you. Do you know, we talked a lot about parenting. I talked a lot about parenting. And as an LGBTQ person, I always assumed that parenting would be something that was beyond my capability or beyond my legal allowance. And what I discovered was that there are children who desperately, desperately need to be fostered, adopted, of all ages, and that there is a dearth of homes and families and love. And as LGBTQ people, in all of Canada certainly, but in many, many states, we are not prejudiced against or discriminated against because of our orientation or our gender identity in regards to doing things like fostering children. And I have to tell you, as someone who didn't have a really great time growing up, there is nothing quite so healing as taking somebody who needs love and needs safety and needs security and providing that for them. Not only is it beautiful because it gives you somebody to look after you when you're 70 years old and in an old folks home throwing Tupperware at an electrified fence, but it also sort of gives you the ability and the opportunity to heal those scars. And I have to tell you that that being a part of a child's life, whether it be as an aunt or an uncle or as a parent or a foster parent, it is incredibly healing. And I think that now it's safer for us to do so. So I would encourage you to bring that element to your life. If it's something you've always wanted or thought about or hoped for, then I did that. And if I can do that, then I think anyone can do that, because I'm not normal, and that's a good thing. And I think that kids need more not normal, and they certainly need love. So if you've ever thought about it, I hope you look into it. And I thank you so much for listening to me tonight and for having me here. And I hope you're all well and safe. Take care. Bye-bye.